It seems like every time one of these presidential election polls come out, we have a spike in Trump derangement syndrome cases. Another one came out today, and another slew of TDS cases came out with people saying that Trump is more dangerous than Hitler and Mussolini. You can't believe some of this stuff, man. It is just crazy. And good news, though, real good news, apparently it hasn't happened yet, but apparently they struck a deal with Hamas, and they're supposed to be releasing all the hostages. Now, is Israel going to stop after those hostages are released? At this point, I somehow doubt it. You know, there's all kinds of tensions. I don't know if you've been hearing about it on the mainstream. I don't really pay attention too much to the mainstream news, but we have been almost constantly been under fire from Hezbollah, Houthi rebels, you know, Iranian-backed terror groups in the Middle East ever since this started, and we've been striking them back. We've had 70 something strikes against targets in the Middle East, U.S. targets in the Middle East since this has started, and I am really surprised that this thing hasn't escalated further than what it has, and we are lucky we're not in World War III right now, but that is not to say that it can't happen, because there is still a lot of fighting going on, and there's still a lot of tensions really high right now, so let's hope and pray that we can de-escalate this situation even further. You know, it would be really nice if the U.S., here's looking at you, Biden, would get their damn fingers out of trying to be the world police. This crap just aggravates me to no end. But enough of all that talk. What's up, everybody? How the hell's your day going? I hope you're having a pretty good day. I know you might be traveling for Thanksgiving. Hey, look, put me on in the background. Do whatever you got to do. I hope you travel safe. Word to the wise, though, if you are traveling for Thanksgiving and you are not passing people, stay out of the dang left lane, people, please. I mean, come on. Leave a comment if you agree with that. As a matter of fact, hit the like button if you want all these idiots to get out of the damn passing lane and get over. Jesus. It's like children out there on the damn road sometimes. Sorry, y'all. That frustrates me till no end. Especially people that love to get onto the interstate highway system. They get on the damn on-ramp, and then they get up to where they're about to merge, and then they hit the damn brakes. Just don't hit the brakes, damn it. Keep going. Floor it. If you get up to highway speed on the on-ramp like you're supposed to do, you can just easily merge into traffic without having to slam on your damn brakes. That really grinds my damn gears when people do that shit. Oh, it pisses me off, but there's nothing I can do about it. Except what I'm doing now. You know, I can yell at people on the internet about it, but I don't know if that's going to do any good. Don't know if that's going to do any good, but gee whiz, I've got to try. Somehow I've got to try. But let's go ahead and jump into today's story. We're talking about guns, folks. That's right, the Second Amendment. I love the Second Amendment, even though I don't exercise my Second Amendment. I still love it. I love the fact that it's there in case I want it. All right, y'all, check this one out. Voter-approved Oregon gun control law violates state constitution, judge rules. That's right. So in the liberal, progressive bastion of progressivism that Oregon is, they can't seem to pass some of these gun control laws. That is very, very good news for the Second Amendment. The left loves to come after the Second Amendment. They want to curtail your gun rights. If they could just totally get rid of guns, they would do it. Which, to be honest, if we didn't have guns at all, the world would be a little bit safer. But it really doesn't make enough difference for me to get behind some kind of eliminate guns totally. I just can't see it. I would much rather be armed than not be armed. But enough of me ranting about it. Let's go ahead and get into this because there's some pretty interesting arguments in here. Let's go ahead and get it started. A voter-approved Oregon gun control law violates state constitution, a judge ruled Tuesday, continuing to block it from taking effect and casting fresh doubt over the future of the embattled measure. That's right, in Oregon, of all places. The law, one of the toughest in the nation, was among the first gun restrictions to be passed after a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year changed the guidance judges are expected to follow when considering Second Amendment cases. That's something I do want to mention right quick. I noticed in I think it was a congressional hearing, it may have been a Senate hearing, that one of the judge's excuses for not doing something was the guidance said not to do it. And the senator was like, it is guidance. It is not rules. They just give you this guidance, say this is what you should do, but you do not have to do that. So just saying, these judges do not have to follow that guidance. It is just there as, I guess a standard to generally, but you do not have to follow that guidance. So these judges are ruling, it seems like, according to this guidance, though, which most of the time they will do. But, you have certain cases come up that kind of defy standardization of ruling. You have to think outside of the box. That's why we put some of these judges in place like this. That's why there's such a grueling process to get some of these Supreme Court justice nominations in place. It's a very grueling process. It takes a while. It takes months. But rightly so, though, The decision was handed down by a circuit court judge, Robert S. Riccio, the presiding judge in Harney County in rural southeast Oregon. The law requires people to undergo a criminal background check and complete a gun safety training course in order to obtain a permit to buy a firearm. It also bans high-capacity magazines, which those never made sense to me because you can just get more magazines and still have the same capacity. Measure 114 has been tied up in state and federal courts since it was narrowly approved by voters last November. The state trial stemmed from a lawsuit filed by gun owners claiming the law violated the right to bear arms under the Oregon Constitution. The defendants include such Oregon officials as Democratic Governor Tina Kotek, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, and State Police Superintendent Casey Cotting. They can appeal to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and the case could ultimately go to the Oregon Supreme Court. Rosenblum plans to appeal the ruling, her office said in an email statement. The Harney County judge's ruling is wrong, the statement said. Worse, it needlessly puts Oregonians' lives at risk. The state will file an appeal, and we believe we will prevail. Naturally, a Democrat is going to disagree with this ruling because they want all guns gone, or at least not, most Democrats, the left, I should say, progressive lefties hate guns. Or at least they don't really hate guns, they just don't want the people having guns. They don't mind cops having the guns and the army having the guns. They just don't want you to have one. And that's why it pisses so many of you off. One of the plaintiffs' attorneys, Tyler Smith, welcomed the ruling. We hope the Attorney General's office will realize that the ill-conceived and unconstitutional ballot measure should not be defended, he said in an email. The decision is likely the first opening salvo of multiple rounds of litigation, said Norma Williams, constitutional law professor at Willamette University. During an appeals process, it's likely that the injunction freezing the law would remain in place. Riccio was the judge who initially blocked it from taking effect in December. Good on you, Judge Riccio. The different lawsuits over the measure have sparked confusion over whether it can be implemented. In a separate federal case over the Oregon measure, a judge in July ruled it was lawful under the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Right. But because Riccio found it to be invalid under the Oregon Constitution during the state trial, the law remains on hold. This is because state courts can strike down a state law that violates the state's constitution, even if it's permissible under the federal constitution. And this is why I dislike overreach of the federal government, and this was one of the things that the founding fathers made so great about our country. You don't like it, the laws of where you live, move somewhere else, move to a different state under different laws. That's why we have different state constitutions, because you want to live around like-minded people that you agree with, right? So that's what is so beautiful about our system, is that you can have two extremes, like Florida and Washington State. Two very different extremes, or you have a state like Arkansas where abortion is banned outright, no exceptions, nothing. Or you can go to like California or Oregon or Washington where you can damn near abort it during labor. 9 months, no exceptions on abortions, which is murder in my opinion. But hey, that's how those people think. That's why we have different states, and I love that fact. I don't want these people to murder their babies, but if that's how you choose to live, who am I to tell you any different? And that's why I hate federal overreach, and that's why I love this country. That's one of the main reasons I love this country. The Second and First Amendment is other two reasons. Well, I lump those into one reason. I'm sorry. I'm gonna shut up. The U.S. Constitution sets a floor, not a ceiling, for rights. So state constitutions can be more rights protective than the federal Constitution, Williams said. Because of this, Oregon officials will have to win in both state and federal court for the law to take effect, he said. During the state trial, the plaintiffs and the defense clash over whether the permit to purchase provision would hamper people from exercising their right to bear arms. They also sparred over whether large capacity magazines are used for self-defense or whether they're protected under the Oregon Constitution. The plaintiffs argued that firearms capable of firing multiple rounds were present in Oregon in the 1850s and known to those who ratified the state constitution, which took effect in 1859. The defense, meanwhile, said modern semi-automatic firearms were technologically distinct from revolvers and multi-barrel pistols that were available in the 1850s. Yes, this is a statement of fact, but it is also a statement of irrelevance. What does that matter at all? It doesn't matter at all. At all. No, whatsoever. Technology does not affect your God-given rights. I'm sorry. You can try to make that argument, but that's not a good argument to make. It will get knocked down every single time. In his opinion, Riccio disputed the defense's claim that banning large-capacity magazines would help make mass shootings less deadly. He's right. He recognized that mass shootings have a significant impact on the psyche of America when they happen, but said they rank very low in frequency, and he is correct. The left loves to act like these happen all the time, and, they're just scared to go outside because of a mass shooting. And there's something else I want to throw out there right quick before we get too late in the video, that if you pay attention to how these mass shootings take place, every single one of them, almost every single one of them, the vast majority of them are done in a gun-free zone. I wonder why that is. Maybe because these mass shooters know there's not going to be anybody with a gun to stop them until the cops get there. That was kind of figured out when the Nashville shooting manifesto came out. The lady was planning, how long it would take the cops to get there and how many people she could kill until that time and all this. It's just insane. The gun-free zones are more harmful than they are helpful, in my opinion. I think we should have at least 2 resource officers with guns on every single school campus in the United States. The court finds that 10-round magazine bans are no panacea to prevent a mass shooter, he wrote. People tend to believe these events are prolific and happening all the time with massive levels of death and injury, he added. The court finds this belief, though sensationalized by the media, is not validated by the evidence. That's right. He is correct. It's just funny he says that. That's just what I was saying. By God. The Oregon measure was passed after a U.S. Supreme Court ruling in June 2022 created new standards for judges weighing in gun laws. That decision fueled a national upheaval in the legal landscape for U.S. firearm law. The ruling tossed aside a balancing test that judges had long used to decide whether to uphold gun laws. It directed them to only consider whether the law was consistent with the country's historical tradition of firearm regulation, rather than take into account public interests such as promoting public safety, which this is a good idea. It's supposed to be fair and balanced. Since then, there has been confusion about which laws can survive. Courts have overturned laws designed to keep weapons away from domestic abusers and felony defendants, which, yeah, but you can make that argument. The Supreme Court heard a case on one such law this month and is expected to issue a ruling by early summer. In her separate federal ruling over the Oregon law, U.S. District Judge Karen Immergut appeared to take into account the Supreme Court's new directive to consider the history of gun regulations. She found large-capacity magazines are not commonly used for self-defense and are therefore not protected by the Second Amendment. Even if they were protected, she wrote, the law's restrictions are consistent with the country's history and tradition of regulating uniquely dangerous features of weapons and firearms to protect public safety. Now, the one problem with that whole situation is, did she really go and look into what firearm these people were using when they actually used their firearm to defend themselves? I highly doubt that. I'm sorry. I believe she just made that up or Googled it right quick to see, which they don't track those statistics. Not to that degree, at least. They don't track that kind of stuff. She also found the permit to purchase provision to be constitutional, noting the Second Amendment allows governments to ensure that only law-abiding responsible citizens keep and bear arms, which sounds like it makes logical sense, but you're also denying rights to certain people. The plaintiffs in the federal case, which include the Oregon Firearms Federation, have appealed the ruling to the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The case could potentially go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. 9 other states have permit-to-purchase laws similar to the Oregon measure, including New York, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, according to the data compiled by Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Apart from Oregon, 11 states, including California, along with Washington, D.C., limit large-capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds, according to the Giffords Center. California's ban on higher-capacity magazines remain in effect while the state fights a lower court's ruling from September that the law is unconstitutional. Yes. Constitutional law, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment, can be very tricky. Can be very, very tricky because you're balancing people's rights with public safety and perception of public safety. So, where do those lines lie? Do you give everybody guns? Personally, in my opinion, if everybody had a gun on them at all times, you would have a lot less shootings. You might think that sounds stupid. But I'm sorry, you're not going to be quick to shoot somebody if you're going to get shot back. People would be a lot nicer to each other, I can promise you that. Of course, the same thing could be said. You could make that exact same argument if there were no guns, period. You could also make the argument nobody would ever get shot. But I can promise you that knife deaths would skyrocket. Yeah, then you'd have to get rid of knives. Then you're going to have to work out what's the next thing people are going to kill people with. then you're going to have to ban that. It's just going to be an endless cycle of banning murder weapons, essentially. So where does it stop? You know, where do people's rights stop and common sense start, essentially? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about all this. And that's all I got for this one, y'all. I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button. And if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, because you want content like this to come up in your feed, don't you? Yeah. If you love staying informed, this is where you need to be. But that's all I got, y'all. Thanks for watching, and y'all be positive. Peace.